I still remember the way I used to look at him, my boyfriend, Tyler, like he was the sun, and I was nothing but a wilted flower waiting to feel his warmth. It's amazing how fast we can switch from devout love to ferocious hatred once we realize we've been betrayed. I never anticipated that someone I loved so purely could twist my trust so profoundly. But life teaches us that nothing is guaranteed, that illusions of safety can shatter without warning. My story started as a fairy tale in the naive sense of the word. I was 24 when I first met Tyler at a charity gala. I had recently come into money after receiving a hefty settlement from a job-related injury. I was in and out of physical therapy, still wearing a brace on my left wrist. But I had hope for the future. Although money was never my ultimate goal, having the settlement meant I could finally afford stability. Maybe that's why I foolishly let my guard down when Tyler walked into my life. He was funny, self-assured, and captivating. I loved how he could simultaneously talk philosophy and sports, how he made me laugh so hard my cheeks hurt. My friends raised brows at how fast we became serious. But Tyler had a gentle way of taking my concerns, soothing them with sweet words, and letting me float on his charm until I believed I was in safe hands. I remember telling him one night that I was scared of heartbreak, and he placed his palm over my heart and said, "I will protect this, always." I believed him. Time flew by. We started cohabiting after dating for only 8 months. That's when we found the perfect house, a cozy craftsman with a wraparound porch, perched on a quiet suburban street. It felt like a dream. Because of my settlement, I was able to secure a substantial down payment, and I covered monthly mortgage payments without an ounce of resentment. After all, Tyler was in law school. He was juggling internships, and I figured once he graduated, he'd contribute. We never put that understanding on paper, it was a handshake agreement of trust. But I was so enamored that I overlooked the old saying, paper is how people in love protect each other from heartbreak. Within that same year, I started noticing strange little things about him. Small, worrisome acts at first. Tyler would stay on the phone with his mother for hours, whispering in a corner, but quickly hang up or change the topic if I came near. Then he'd talk about property laws and ownership with an odd glint in his eyes. I asked him once if something was on his mind. He shrugged it off and kissed my forehead like I was a clueless child. I forced myself to disregard my uneasy feeling, telling myself it was just nerves from the weight of our new responsibilities. Yet, my intuition, that seldom wrong compass, kept nudging me. One evening, after Tyler stepped out to buy groceries, I decided to do something I never thought I'd do, snoop. I know it was a breach of trust, but every bone in my body was screaming that something was off. In his desk drawer, hidden under textbooks and random files, was a photocopy of our house's deed. My heart pounded as I read it. It bore my name, and someone else's. Not Tyler's, his mother's. Confusion held me rigid for what felt like an eternity. I flipped through each page, my mind reeling. Our address, the official documents. And right there, typed neatly, in black ink, the names on the deed, mine and Sarah Clark. Sarah was Tyler's mother. For a moment, my brain couldn't process it. I had never, not once, met her in a context that suggested she wanted to be part owner of my house. I thought it was a mistake, but the more I read, the more I realized it was no accident. My stomach clenched with fury that set my blood roaring. I raged through the house, picking up my phone, ready to call him immediately. But a voice in the back of my mind said, "Wait. Find out how deep this betrayal goes before you confront him." That voice was my saving grace. Instead of calling, I stilled my trembling hands and took pictures of every page. Then I carefully put everything back. When Tyler returned, I pretended everything was normal. Part of me wanted to scream, to smash every dish we owned, to throw him out. But if he had already gone this far putting his mother's name on the house, for which I alone was paying, then I needed time to unravel the entire plan. I began my own investigation, rummaging through Tyler's emails, texts, anything that might uncover what he was truly plotting. Over the next couple of weeks, bits of the puzzle started to form a nefarious picture. Tyler had orchestrated it, forging or manipulating documents so that half the ownership was in his mother's name, apparently intending to protect himself from any claim if we split. Even if we broke up, his mother could legally claim her share of the property, and, effectively, I would lose half of the money I had invested. It was cunning, vile, and thoroughly planned. The unstoppable fury within me only grew deeper. Yet, with my anger came heartbreak. This was the man who had told me he'd protect my heart, the one who made me believe in happily ever after. It was shattering, yes, but also awakening. The naive, docile part of me, the part that wanted so desperately to trust, died in those moments. In its place was a resourceful woman who would not let his betrayal go unanswered. I didn't kick Tyler out right away, and I'm sure to an outsider, my choice seemed perplexing. But I had a strategy. I needed to gather definitive legal proof that the forgery had taken place without my knowledge or consent. I recorded conversations subtly, made notes of times when Tyler admitted I was the one paying for the house. I met with an attorney secretly. I wanted to file a lawsuit that exposed Tyler and his mother for their wrongdoing. But first, I needed the entire plot. I played the role of the doting partner, cooking him meals, massaging his tense shoulders when he returned from his legal internship. He looked so exhausted from living a double life, and I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. But then I'd remember the hush-hush phone calls, the meticulously hidden deed, and I'd steel my resolve. Eventually, I discovered Tyler's mother was actually the architect of the scheme. She had zero moral qualms about stealing from me if she believed it would secure her son's future. Tyler confided to me once that his mother had always worried about him marrying someone who'd take advantage of his success. Apparently, her suspicion had turned into obsession, and she'd urged Tyler to protect himself using legal loopholes. Together, they decided the best approach was to stick her name on the deed, without my knowledge. The fact that it was my money paying for everything, a mere inconvenience they dismissed. The final straw came when I overheard Tyler bragging to one of his friends on a phone call that, should I flip out over the house, his mother would sue me, forcing me to sell and split the profits that, ironically, were entirely mine to begin with. That phone conversation cemented my decision. I was going to make him regret his arrogance. I started with the legal steps. My lawyer, a tall, calm woman named Priya, guided me through the process. She was especially keen on gathering evidence texts, recordings, bank statements showing I was the only one paying the mortgage. Priya also taught me an invaluable lesson. Revenge can feel satisfying in the moment, but let's make sure you win this for the long run. The plan was to file a civil complaint against Tyler and his mother for fraudulent transfer of property interest. It was complicated, but I was determined to see it through. Next, I planned my emotional exit. It was crucial to catch Tyler off guard. If he realized I was onto him, he might move out or, worse, manipulate me into an unprepared confrontation. So, over the following months, I made sure to keep up appearances and, ironically, to care for him better than ever. I gave him no reason to suspect that each hug, each whispered "I love you," was a carefully orchestrated act. My stomach churned every time I had to play that role, but my resolve outweighed my revulsion. To ensure I was protected if everything blew up, I decided to find my own allies. I talked to close friends who knew what was happening beneath the surface. My best friend, Mia, offered me a place to stay if things got nasty. She also recommended an excellent financial forensic expert who helped me trace every mortgage payment I'd made. We assembled the data in neat, color-coded spreadsheets that left no doubt about my sole financial responsibility for the house. Through all this, I fought with my own guilt. Perhaps some part of me was afraid that seeking revenge would destroy the memory of our once beautiful relationship. Then again, Tyler had already destroyed it. Whenever I felt a pang of guilt, I'd picture the signatures on the deed that read Sarah Clark. That was all the motivation I needed. The day I confronted him still feels surreal in my memory. I waited until he came home from work, with heavy footsteps and a scowl from the stressful day. I'd set up a romantic dinner in the dining room, complete with candles, our usual date night ritual. He looked pleased, albeit tired, as he dropped his briefcase by the door. I remember noticing how the golden light made him look deceptively gentle, the same man I once thought I'd spend my forever with. I had the deed copy out on the table. Before he could even greet me properly, I slid it over to him. He froze, eyes darting between me and the document. "Where did you get this?" he asked, voice laced with unease. "A better question," I said calmly, "is why is your mother's name on it?" He tried to talk his way out of it. He made up some flimsy excuse about an inheritance plan, ridiculous at face value. When I refused to believe it, he switched tactics to anger. He threw plates off the table, shattered a candle holder, and roared that I had no right to question him. That's when I dropped the final bomb. I revealed that I knew all about his plan to protect himself, to force me into splitting the house's worth, and that I had proof, legal, undeniable proof. His face turned ashen. I've never seen him so silent. For a few moments, he seemed poised to apologize, to beg forgiveness. But his pride intervened, and he sneered something about how I was overreacting. That's when I told him I'd consulted a lawyer, that a civil complaint was already being prepared. I'd also alerted the mortgage company, so they were aware of the potential fraud. His meltdown was immediate and explosive. He tried to accuse me of being a gold digger, an absurdity, given I was the one who'd paid for everything. He pleaded that his mother had forced him into it. He threatened to ruin my reputation. I simply stood there, arms folded, unwavering. I told him calmly that he could pack his things or the authorities would escort him out. He left that night, cursing me under his breath. Once the door slammed shut, I let the wave of relief and grief wash over me. I sank to the floor in the middle of shards of broken plates and wept. It wasn't just about losing Tyler, it was about losing the illusion of safety I had. But I was done mourning illusions. The next morning, I cleaned up the mess, vowing not to shed another tear for that man. The following weeks were a blur of legal proceedings. Tyler's mother tried to fight back. She claimed in her affidavit that I'd requested her name be added to the deed as a gesture of good faith. The nerve of her! Luckily, we had reams of evidence showing the forgery took place without my consent. Her signature was suspiciously identical to mine in places, revealing a sloppy attempt to mimic my handwriting. My attorney and the forensic expert tore their defense apart systematically. It went to court a laborious process spanning months. During depositions, Tyler tried to play the victim, painting me as a manipulative partner who was out for his family's money. But my bank statements told a completely different story. In the end, the judge ruled in my favor, declaring that any ownership claims by Tyler's mother were null and void due to fraud. Even more, I was granted a restraining order against Tyler and his mother, as the judge believed they might seek retribution outside the legal system. And just like that, their plan collapsed. They were left with nothing, except a hefty legal bill for attorney fees and damages awarded to me. In a moment of poetic justice, Tyler lost his internship. The law firm decided they didn't want to be associated with an aspiring lawyer who was found complicit in real estate fraud. At first, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt drained. I was stunned that so much of my life had been dedicated to uncovering and destroying Tyler's deceit. Where did I go from there? My dream home felt tainted, haunted by memories I wanted to erase. For a moment, I contemplated selling it altogether. Yet, that same home had been the biggest symbol of my financial independence. It was also a reflection of the life I'd hoped to build, a life of stability that I had long prayed for, especially after struggling with my injury and the subsequent settlement. Abandoning it felt like surrender. I opted instead to reclaim it, piece by piece. I painted the walls in bold shades I'd never considered before. Fiery reds for the kitchen, serene greens for the living room. With each brushstroke, I felt as though I was wiping away the past. I had new furniture delivered, sturdy pieces that felt like a fresh start. And perhaps most significantly, I removed every trace of Tyler. Photographs went into boxes. Gifts he'd given me were donated. Even the memory of him, I swore, would not mar my new sanctuary. As for Tyler, I heard through the grapevine that he and his mother faced additional charges for forging documents in another scheme unrelated to me. Rumors said they might go bankrupt, that Tyler might never pass the bar exam after such a scandal. In another life, the knowledge would have satisfied me, feeding that thirst for vengeance. But I was beyond wanting to see him suffer. I felt pity, if anything. They were miserable, people destined to drown in the chaos they created. One of the best moments came when I finally told my closest friends the entire story. We had a housewarming party, my reclaiming the house party, I called it. There was wine, music, and a torrent of laughter. My friend Mia proposed a toast. To new beginnings, she said. To healing from betrayal, to winning battles with grace, and to never again letting your guard down for people who don't deserve it. Tears stung my eyes, but they were happy tears. I was surrounded by those who genuinely cared, who stood by me when the storm raged. Still, it took time to rebuild my life. I went to therapy, learning that healing from betrayal is a process of rebuilding self-trust. I worried I would never again be able to let someone into my heart. But I had a therapist who patiently guided me, reminding me that not everyone is Tyler. And slowly, I opened myself up first to new friends, then to the possibility of love. About a year after the lawsuit, I found myself sharing a table at a coffee shop with a man named Julian, a friend of a friend. He was unassuming, gentle, and, most importantly, genuinely kind. I was hesitant to delve into anything romantic. My wounds were still tender, but we built a connection organically, discussing books, social issues, mundane daily details. With him, I never felt the push and pull of manipulation. He respected every boundary I set, never pried into my finances, never tried to control me. When I felt comfortable enough to share my past, he listened intently and offered no judgment, no pity, just understanding. I realized then that this was what healthy support looked like, patient companionship that demands nothing in return. By the second anniversary of my fateful discovery in Tyler's desk drawer, my life had blossomed in ways I never anticipated. I was in a stable relationship with a man I cared for deeply, who cherished me just as much. The house was truly my home now, a warm haven that no longer reminded me of heartbreak, but of my strength. My career was flourishing. I'd started my own consulting business, using the rest of the settlement money to fund a dream that was entirely my own. On the night Julian first stayed over, I cooked us a simple dinner, and we ate on that wraparound porch under the gentle glow of the setting sun. I felt safe, content, two emotions I once feared I'd never experience again. And I realized that Tyler's betrayal, while devastating, had led me down a path to discovering my own resilience. It had shown me the importance of protecting myself, not just financially, but emotionally. Now, I won't pretend my scars don't exist. Healing doesn't erase the past. It just teaches us to grow around it. But those scars have made me stronger, more discerning. If someone tries to manipulate me now, I see the signs sooner. I'm no longer the wilted flower waiting for someone else's sunshine. I am the sun, radiating my own light, forging my own destiny. Sometimes, I hear tidbits of gossip about Tyler's life, how he's moved from job to job, never quite landing a solid footing. His mother is rumored to still be meddling in his affairs, trying desperately to keep him afloat. I wish them nothing but the best, oddly enough. I hope they find a way to live without constantly swindling others. But that hope is more for humanity's sake than for them specifically. If I ever passed them on the street, I doubt they'd recognize me. I've grown too much. I walk differently, shoulders squared, head high. Confidence radiates from me now, a direct result of surviving their deception. My story might look like revenge, and to an extent, it was. I took them to court. I stripped away what they wrongfully tried to take from me. And I'll admit, seeing them unravel under the weight of their own decay, it brought a sense of vindication. I can't deny, but the real victory wasn't about punishing them. It was about reclaiming my life, my assets, my peace of mind. It was about learning how to stand up for myself when faced with betrayal that threatened everything I worked for. In the end, revenge was just a stepping stone. The real reward was the freedom to build the life I deserved, untainted by Tyler's manipulations. If there's one message I can pass on, it's that betrayal doesn't have to define you. Sometimes, it can be the spark that lights the fire of your own transformation, leading you to find strength you never knew you had. And for anyone who ever finds themselves in the position I was in, realizing that a loved one has so callously jeopardized your trust, please know that you have the power to reclaim what's rightfully yours, both in practical, legal terms and in matters of the soul. Standing up against betrayal is a form of self-love, and no one, not even the ones who claim to love you, has the right to deprive you of it. I got my house back, got my life back, and in the process, found a new, stronger version of myself. That, in itself, is the sweetest form of revenge. Living well, living free, and never surrendering your power to those who would misuse it.